Hey everybody, this is Ben Kesnoka, co-founder and partner at Village Global, a network-driven venture firm. And this is our podcast, where we go deep on all things business and technology with world-leading experts.
If you don't know Henry Shih, you should. So in 2016, Henry started Super.com, the savings and fintech app, and he scaled it to $1 billion in GMV, $200 million in revenue, 50 million users, and profitable. And then when things were going great at the end of 2024, it was, after all, Super. He intuited that there was an inflection point going on. So he stepped back from operating and took some time to learn out loud and to really think about what might be working in AI. And he created artifacts, which we'll link in the show notes, which are really actionable today. And that's the AI crash course with 5,000 GitHub stars, plus the Lean AI leaderboard, and then the Lean AI company playbook. And we're going to talk about all of those. But then, after about 9 months, Henry came to us. He messaged us and he said, I know my next chapter. And there are a few things that spark joy for early-stage investors, more than a very talented founder saying, I'm thinking about starting something new. But Henry surprised us, and he used the F word, Frontier Lab. And he ended up joining Anthropic. And today, we're going to talk about all of that. What he saw, what he learned, what it's like at Anthropic, and what this means for all of us, whether founders, investors, or anyone building their career in the age of AI. So welcome, Henry.
Thanks for having me. Wow, that was a very great, candid, kind intro. So thanks so much. And yeah, happy to be here. Happy to share everything I learned building the company, exploring the future, building AI, learning about AI, and how companies going to be in this AI native era. So happy to have this conversation.
Great. Well, I think you always have lived in the future. So let's take a step back to 2016. And can you share the origin story of Super.com?
Yeah, sure. That's great. So that was actually exactly 10 years ago in October 2015. I quit my job at Google. I went to Waterloo, studied computer science, been an entrepreneur for 10, 15 years, always loved building companies. I worked at Google for a year after graduating. Everyone, I guess I thought it was the dream job when you're a kid. You're like, wow, if I work at Google. And in many ways, it was great. A lot of smart people, a lot of talented people, but also just a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of red tape. Like, it was a massive company back then. And I realized that a big company just wasn't for me. It was hard to get stuff done. I had 4 different managers within a year. It took me 8 months before I shipped anything to production. So really, I was like 22 at the time, and I wanted to build. I wanted to get back into startups. So I quit my job exactly the day my stock vested, October 2015, and started a company. It was just my co-founder and I at the time, so we had no idea, no industry, no vertical, just like people. We wanted to work together, and we're going to figure stuff out. So we iterated, talked to customers, the whole lean startup methodology. Ended up in the conversational commerce space back when chatbots were all the rage, messenger chatbots, the first era. This is before ChatGPT and all that stuff. Now it's coming back. But the first era, and then very quickly learned chatbots were okay. It's good for people like you and I. If you're busy, you want to spend time. You want to spend money to save time. But for most people, they have too much time. They'd rather spend time to save or make money. And chat wasn't necessarily great for that. So we focused on what people wanted, which is just saving money, good deals. And we said, let's get rid of the chat. Let's focus on what people want, good deals, good savings. And we focused on, at that time, travel savings, and then eventually expanded to other form savings and launched our own card, credit building, cashback rewards, the whole gamut. But that's kind of how we got started originally.
Amazing. Okay, so now let's fast forward to December 2024. And you said after being a founder for 8 years, you saw an inflection point. What did you see specifically?
One thing is with my company, just seeing that journey going from 0 to over 200 million in annual revenue, profitably, having a leadership team, having an exec team. I've pretty much done everything within the company at that point: product engineering, design, strategy, growth, execution, OKRs, M&A, the whole gamut of things, 0 to 1, 1 to 10, 10 to 100 and beyond, and back again. So I had a great experience. Honestly, felt very lucky and privileged to have been on that journey. But at the same time, kind of realizing that AI was coming. We were actually super early customers of Anthropic back, I think, in 2022. And I remember that at that time, I was telling my team, "Hey, like we had a shared Slack channel where they were doing custom work with us with researchers." And I remember telling my team, saying, "Hey, this company is going to change the world. We should take this very seriously. That they want to work with us." And I guess it was a little early for them. We were busy with our OKRs. Nothing really happened, unfortunately. But that kind of just made me realize that you had to really kind of be in it to understand it, to prioritize it, to believe it. Otherwise, it's just going to fly by you. And by that time, the company's doing well. My co-founder, was running the company, and we were a good team. So I figured it was an opportunity to just take a step back, let the team shine, continue to grow. We had very well diversified revenue streams now, multiple use cases. So the company's going to keep going and scaling. And for me to be a little bit closer to some of my technical backgrounds or roots as well, and spend some dedicated time exploring AI and this new wave.
We give you a lot of credit because it takes courage to go untethered, because you kind of like took off for a gap year to learn out loud and stuff like that. And I'm just curious, how did you approach that? Like, 'cause many people travel, they do sauna and cold
Right.
plunge. How did you structure your time to be so productive? You were so busy and productive.
Yeah, thank you. And it was great, getting to build a relationship with the Village folks while being part of all your events and community and hosting things together. I think for me, I just love learning, and I get a lot of joy from that. So being on a beach, I think I get bored after a week, or not even a week, maybe a couple of days. So I think one is just staying busy, staying top of mind, getting the opportunity to explore and do things that I otherwise couldn't really explore. And I think when you're a free agent, you have a lot more freedom and latitude to do things. Whereas before I was like, hey, why is this fintech commerce guy doing, an AI, whatever, leaderboard, right?
Yeah.
But as a free agent, you have the credibility of what you built, but also the flexibility and freedom to do other things, and it still makes a lot of sense, and you have the freedom to learn and to build in public and to learn in public. So I think that it's a combination of that, and then also in terms of productivity, I think it's just having the time as well, the freedom, flexibility. You have 8 hours a day, actually probably more, 12 plus hours a day to just get into certain rabbit holes to learn. You didn't have to hit certain OKRs, and you had that flexibility. So I think that was a combination of credibility, flexibility, and time and community.
Amazing. Okay, so you did and documented,
Right.
and still out there, the AI crash course.
Right.
So you're kind of a technical savant. Can the mere mortals learn AI in weeks like you did?
Well, I wouldn't call myself a savant necessarily. I do have a background, but it's been 4 or 5 years since I really coded every single day. I was running my company for 8 years. For the first 4 years, I was writing code, wrote the first line of code, and continued to do so. And the last 4, it was very much about people, strategy, execution, goals, and just really steering the bigger ship. So didn't have a lot of time to write code every day. So for me, part of it was getting back into some of the more technical details. I'd say it's definitely learnable, but it takes and there are a lot of people who put out a lot of great resources to help. So what I did was just basically, as I was learning, one of my friends recommended that, hey, it's actually good to learn in public because one, it's an accountability mechanism to make you share what you learn, and you better be on top of what you're sharing. Otherwise, if you don't know what you're sharing, then you kind of look stupid. So if you're learning in public and sharing what you're learning, then it just forces you to truly internalize things.
Okay, so then you also started tracking some great companies with the AI, or Lean AI leaderboard. So let's talk about the criteria for that and then some case studies.
Yeah, so the Lean AI leaderboard is this leaderboard I built, I think in March of this year, when around that time you were seeing all these tweets on Twitter around people saying, oh, Cursor went from 0 to 100 in X number of month with 20 people, Mercor, 0 to 50, and all these like crazy fast growing companies scaling very quickly with very lean teams. And for a long time, I had always believed, and many founders believe this, is the most fun stages of a company are the early stages, like sub 50 people, when everyone's like in a room just getting stuff done, super aligned, and you have that camaraderie. And then as you grow and scale the company, it just becomes a lot of like people problems, he said, she said, and sorting out interpersonal dynamics. So now with AI, if you can grow quickly and profitably with a small team, what does this new trend of company building look like? Do you still need traditional venture capital? Do you need to hire all these people, and how do you scale quickly and get real scale and revenue, right? So it was very fascinating to me, and I thought there must be more companies than just the 5 names everyone kept talking about: Cursor, Lovable, Mercor, etc. So I did this research to find all these companies who are super lean, growing quickly. And then I was asking my friend who, and kind of as a joke, was like, what do you think investors care about? And he's like, I don't think investors care about anything except for beating other investors on a leaderboard, like the Forbes Midas list and things like that. So I thought, okay, well, we have this list, we can gamify it, turn it into a leaderboard, and launch it. So I think I was actually on a ski trip, and then that night before, I was working on this thing, and I found a domain, trying to figure out what to call this thing, and I just AIleaderboard.com and launched it, and it became really viral on social media, and I got millions of impressions, and it just tracks companies who are growing very quickly, under 5 years old, over 5 million ARR, with less than 50 people, and the gold standard is over $1 million ARR per employee. Which is multiple times higher than traditional SaaS companies or even software companies.
What did you learn about the types of companies? Like what enables that?
A lot of these companies are just AI native, AI first companies who've been founded very recently, and the founders are taking a very AI native approach. So instead of throwing bodies at the problem, they'll throw AI automation solutions at the problem. They'll build a lot of workflows in-house to automate things, and just try to stay lean and nimble as much as possible. And I think a lot of people ask, what is defensible in this AI era when everything or many things are wrappers? And I think personally, I think one of the only defensible things is your speed of execution.
Yeah.
Right? Everything's moving so quickly, constantly adjusting, so you just have to keep testing, iterating, learning. And by having a small, nimble team, you can move a lot faster than having bigger teams, and that's actually a competitive advantage. So you see a lot of companies purposely try to stay lean, try to stay nimble, really hire top senior talent who are generalists versus specialists because they have to learn and relearn new skills all the time. And then also, I think you see a lot of like PLG consumer growth companies, and I think oftentimes they're able to scale a lot faster. And so far, I don't think the enterprise sales, SDR, BDR, AM motion is fully solved with AI yet. Right. So you still need human bodies for the traditional enterprises. But once you have AI agents and sales agents, I think we'll see more B2B and enterprise companies as well.
So let's dig into the generalist versus specialist hiring, because that might seem at odds with being close to the customer. So if you have a lot of generalists, how do you get good customer discovery?
I think being a generalist doesn't necessarily contradict with being close to the customer. In fact, if anything, because you have so few people, you have everyone interfacing with customers, right? Whether it's support or feedback or product. I think because just there's so few people to solve all these problems, by nature of that, you're just wearing a lot more hats, you're doing a lot more things, you understand the business function end to end, and that gives you a better intuition about what customers want and their feedback and how to improve the product. And the generalists are not junior people, they're often very, very senior people who just have a lot of experience and have different skill sets. That way you have someone with good experience who can still be a generalist and have to cover a lot of things, understand the business end to end. And I think that's what allows them to move very quickly.
Yeah. And on that list, it strikes me as there were a lot of companies that target developers. Mm-hmm. And then some, like Cal.com, right, which is a direct-to-consumer app, right, for calorie counting. Yeah. And so I guess that validates your point that it's not enterprise companies. It has to be maybe...
Yeah, like prosumer, consumer, some infra companies, right? A lot of media companies, like Imagen, Videogen. And there's some like developer tooling for companies as well. But generally speaking, right now, because of I'd say the lack of AI sales automation or enterprise sales automation, I think you see a lot of these prosumer consumer infra companies scaling very quickly with very, very leanly. But I think over time you'll see more B2B enterprises companies as well.
Let's talk about your journey again. So you're out there, you're doing your crash course, you're building in public. You think about the Lean AI leaderboard, and then you say, today it's either entrepreneurship, VC, or a frontier lab. So walk us through the three options and what you chose to do.
Yeah, I think historically, as a repeat exited, more successful founder, I think many people felt compelled or maybe even trapped to the two paths of either being another founder or being an investor, right? And they feel like those two are the only two options available to them. And whether that's because of opportunity cost or lifestyle choices or preference or even pride in some cases, I think the common path are these two. And I think it's often very hard for founders to say, hey, I want to work for someone again once being caught by the entrepreneurial bug. And I can certainly relate to that. However, as I was exploring, I realized that there's a third path, which I wrote about in my post and our content, which is a frontier lab, which is actually quite a little bit different, and I'll explain why. I'll explain the three options, and I'll explain why the third. So on the venture path, I spent a lot of time on the other side of the table. I mean, I have a lot of experience as a founder, pitching investors, getting rejected 144 times. So very much an experience on the founder side.
Their loss.
Yeah, and I can't say that it's been, and I think if you talk to most founders, it's one of the things they like least about starting a company, right? It's very much song and dance, but what I didn't appreciate, or maybe I appreciate more on the other side now, as I spent time on the other side of the table as a venture partner or sitting in certain meetings, meeting hundreds of investors, and then having entrepreneurs pitch me, is that it's also very much a sales job on the other side. Some of the stats really surprised me, but once you kind of see it, it kind of makes sense, which is most investors, certainly the top ones, the partners might make 2 or 3 investments a year. Right, so that's they have to be super selective, and it's really they are about picking. And when you're super selective, you kind of have to go for deals that you feel like can return the fund, which is returning nowadays maybe 10 billion or more, right? And oftentimes that means converging on certain types of founders like ex-OpenAI, Stanford researchers who are doing world models for XYZ, right? Because that is the consensus of these big $10 billion returns. And what happens is, but these founders, because they fit that profile, they have many options. They have many term sheets already. So your job ends up becoming selling founders who don't really need your money to take your money, right? Because they already have 10 term sheets. It's like, how do you convince them to take your money versus someone else's? And then the irony of that is the founders who actually need your money, who you can actually help, you don't want to help because they have no term sheets, right? And if you're going to do 2 deals a year, are you really going to take that bet on this founder who's maybe unproven, unknown, and has no term sheets and no real consensus? Right now, there are definitely firms who take a really contrarian approach, but for the most part, I think it's very much, well, there's this founder that fits the mold. They're going to be able to $10 billion company. Let's convince them to take our money. And for me, it just felt like very much a sales job, which is fine, but I wasn't sure something that I wanted to do full-time right now. Maybe sometime in the future, but for now, I felt like I still had builder energy and drive to do something, and I wanted to help more founders. And doing 2 deals a year is very hard because you have to say no to 998 founders who pitch you. On the startup side, I also thought about a lot. I was playing with a lot of different ideas and trying to test different things. But I think it came down to 2 things, which is one is there wasn't like a mission or maybe, just like a mission that I wanted to spend the next 5-10 years of my life solving. Like great companies take a long time to build, even Super.com, that was pretty much a 10-year journey. And so I knew second time around that it was going to take a long, long time. And I want to make sure that whatever I dedicate myself to, it's something that I really, really believe strongly in the mission and the cause. And that there wasn't that strong mission or cause just yet. And then 2 is I didn't want to start up for the sake of doing a startup. You can do another B2B AI SaaS wrapper startup, and that's fine. And even these days, you can get it to 5-10 million ARR, and that's probably decent. But for me, my company's still going. I'm on the board. I'm fully vested. Companies continue to grow and scale, looking to go public in the next couple of years. So for me, it's like you can make an extra 10 million ARR here, or I can just tell my team to do it, and they can do it and grow from 200 to 300 and et cetera. And that's probably more impact and equity value. It's never been easier to go from 0 to 5, 10, even 20 plus million ARR, but it's never been more unclear who's going to go from 10, 20, 50 million to 100 and beyond. Right? You look at Jasper AI, for example, one of the darlings of the early ChatGPT era, 0 to 100 and now back down, and some are stabilized, but it's really hard to know who has staying power. And even some of these companies and the headlines you hear, like, are they margin positive or are they margin negative? How much money they're losing through inference, through model costs. So it's really hard to know who's going to be around and who's going to get replaced and who's going to get eaten by the models. So it's very uncertain. Now, this actually relates somewhat to this new type of funding called seed-strapping, which I guess is a term that maybe I didn't coin, but popularized, which is this new form of starting a company, which is you take a little bit of seed capital and then you scale it and you use that to scale it to get escape velocity. So a combination between bootstrapping and raising a seed fund. But it's unlike bootstrapping, you're not paying out of your own pocket in the early couple years, and you can play with someone else's money and get to growth. But unlike traditional venture, you don't have to keep raising series A, B, C, D, E, F, G, get diluted to like 2% and lose control and have to deal with all these like board dynamics, et cetera. So it's kind of a little bit of best of both worlds. Before AI, it wasn't really possible because it was really expensive to build product, to bring it to market, to hire all these people. So you needed lots of, and you couldn't grow revenue so quickly and certainly not profitably. So you needed to keep taking capital. But I think if we look back, a little bit of irony is, do we really need to invest $500 million to make a B2B SaaS company? Like, right? And now, especially with AI, you can certainly build all these things and get to scale. And because there's so much demand for and willingness to pay for AI products, you can get to market much quickly, much cheaper, and scale, make revenue, and be profitable. So if you have that, then the question is, what is the role of traditional venture capital? Right? So are there new forms of funding that can enable these types of seed-strap companies? I'm sure they may not be $10 billion companies, but I think for a founder, if you're like 5 people making $10 million a year every year, that's pretty good, and probably you're probably doing better than most venture-backed founders, right? Who are illiquid, who are stuck, and whether they can or can't raise, but it's just tough, and you have a total flexibility and control. So then, are there new capital structures that can help scale these types of companies, whether it's like revenue-based financing or things like that? So these are some of the things I've been piloting with, and I know we chatted about this with Village as well. Can you back founders in the earliest of stages in some sort of founder-friendly structure that has early DPI and returns? It's not uncapped, but you're getting returns. You can recycle that and then help many more founders than just two founders a year, because you have to return the whole fund. Versus here, you can help a lot more founders and help them get to seed-strapped escape velocity while still having good returns for the fund and early DPI.
Right. And there might be optionality, because some of those businesses might actually end up being huge decacorns or something like that, and decide to raise follow-on capital. So yeah, we love that structure. Okay, but you rejected those two options of VC and founding.
Yeah. So after spending about half a year thinking through, learning, building, experimenting, I sort of came to the thought that if I'm not going to be an investor or start a company right now, and I'm going to do AI on the outside, may as well do it at the inside, at a frontier, on a good mission, make good impact with great people, great talent density, and really take my experiences as an entrepreneur and builder and apply it to a good cause and push it forward. And I think historically, this opportunity probably didn't emerge for many founders because there was nothing of such consequence or scale or excitement. I mean, maybe Google in the early 2000s, maybe, but I mean, really, this is maybe one of the biggest inventions of our lifetime, and many people say maybe the humanity's last invention, right, in terms of AGI. So, it certainly is very powerful, and I kind of saw the capabilities of these AIs developing exponentially, and I decided, you know what, if I'm going to do it on the outside, may as well do it with a great team on a good mission. So got in touch with some of the folks there because we were super early customers. I had a friend from Waterloo who was like an early researcher there. I've known Ben a little bit through the startup community. I was just chatting a little bit, and they were like, hey, we have this 0 to 1 prototyping role. It's maybe good for founders. And I was like, sure, happy to roll up my sleeves and do whatever. Like, I didn't need to do XYZ or manage a big team. In fact, I probably prefer not to, because having gone through that, just having managed hundreds of people, you really kind of appreciate the fun and simplicity of just building. So we're chatting, and I think we were chatting through that process, and I think it was a little bit like I did pretty well, and then also they kind of realized I'd done a lot, so like, hey, maybe you can just help Ben directly and help across the org and bring some of that founder energy and experience and just help execute across the org. So that's kind of the opportunity. But Anthropic is very much very disciplined and pretty fair in that process. So I think everyone more or less goes through an existing process. And then through that process, eventually kind of maybe people figure out certain roles. But yeah, overall, it was pretty fair and disciplined process. And I'm pretty fortunate to be able to make an impact on the inside at the frontier.
Well, and it's amazing because the talent density there is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes the flip side of talent density is a lot of egos
Right.
and a lot of independent thinking, which isn't
Right.
always good for alignment. And I don't
Right.
mean AI alignment.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, human alignment.
Right.
So can you tell us a little bit, how do decisions get made? How do
Right.
priorities get set?
Yeah. So coming in, I think one of the first things I realized is the mission is very much real. You definitely feel the alignment towards the mission. People really care about it and take it very seriously. And on the outside, I think there's a little bit of skepticism around, like, are they just saying that? Is it just posturing? Is it regulatory capture? But certainly on the inside, it's very much real. People take it very seriously. It's very open, transparent. Dario gives these incredible, like, all hands discussions where there's no corporate speak. He'll answer every single question. There's no dodging or roundabout, just straight on, heads on, speaking very candidly. And I think that creates a lot of alignment and trust in leadership and the vision. And you see the decisions being made that don't always, oftentimes deprioritizes revenue or certain metrics that a normal company would care about, like engagement, clickbaiting, and things like that, really making tougher decisions to do what's right for customers, consumers, or even just like global good or beneficial deployments. So I think overall, it's you definitely feel that, and because there's a very high culture bar in terms of the values cultures interview, I think you're selecting for people who really care about that, who are in it, who are here in it, doing it for the right reason, and I think people take that very seriously.
I think of Anthropic as really leading in
Right.
coding with Claude. What is the future of coding, do you think?
I think Anthropic is certainly leading in coding in many ways, and in many areas outside of coding as well, like knowledge work and things like that. One thing, and this is all public, which is if you think about how coding is developed, right? Like a year ago, 2024, we barely had tab autocomplete, right? You could tab autocomplete some functions, and that was like pretty incredible. And then 2025 came around, and you had agentic coding. Like you can chat with the agent, vibe coding. You had Cloud Code, Windsurf, things like that. And now by end of 2025, you have pretty good agents that are kind of junior, intermediate level engineers, right? And this is a tweet from one of the Adam Wolf, which is a former engineering manager on Cloud Code. He said something to the effect of, like, software engineering as we know it may be done by 2026, right? And this is, you can look at him on Twitter. Yeah. So this is something that, again, no one knows the future, but if you think about just the fact of writing code and this pace at which we scale from 24 to 25 to 26, it's a real shot that the way we write code is going to change forever, and no one's going to, and I think the analogy used is, it's kind of like no one really thinks about a compiler, right? You just write the code and it spits out some binary bytecode and it just works. So could you have that and you write English and out comes Python, which then gets translated to binary? Like, maybe.
Yeah. And so for the foreseeable future, how much do you think a coding background matters?
I think having problem solving, critical reasoning matters a ton still, because coding is just a way to express formal logic. And that a lot of that is grounded in like problem solving, critical reasoning, first principle thinking, and things like that. So I think those foundational building blocks still matter. But yeah, writing Python, I'm not sure. Just like writing COBOL and Fortran doesn't really matter right now, right? Or like writing C++ in many cases may not even matter. So
like speaking Latin?
Yeah, exactly. Right? So yeah, and I think in many ways maybe English is the Python of the future.
And how do you think about, in this age where maybe expertise is getting free or something, what are humans good at?
I'm not sure. I'm really not sure because, like, you can argue even the AI today is superhuman in many ways, right? Like it can solve open math problems, it can do coding competitions, it can do therapy, it can write poetry, it can do all these things that the average person probably can't do. And if you take any one slice of that. It's probably better than most people. Now, there's obviously experts who are still going to be better, but the average of that is pretty powerful. So I'm really not sure. And maybe this is a non-answer. I don't know if it's a good answer. Maybe.
And what about, so if you fast forward a couple years, what will work look like?
I don't think anybody can predict just a few years out, to be honest. Right? If you look at AI 2027, the timelines towards that, I'm really not sure. I mean, I think an interesting thought experiment is whether it's going to be humans with a bunch of AI employees, or is it going to be AI bosses with a bunch of human employees?
Right.
Right? Because if you think about AI, what it's good and not good at, it's probably really good at synthesizing all this information and making a decision, right? But to actually do stuff, it kind of has to interact with the physical world. Like, so if the AI boss says, hey, I need you to go to this place and pick up this item and come back and do this thing, you might not understand why, but it's probably calculated all the permutations and the decision tree there. But the AI can't really do that because it doesn't have many times physical interactions. Versus humans, if humans are the boss and delegating to AI, AIs can do a lot too, but is the human boss going to make the most optimal decisions? And I'm not sure. And maybe it's a hybrid because you always need a human to be accountable or something, or hold them accountable or something.
Right.
So, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know which way it's gonna fold.
Okay, so if we can't predict the future, at least we can prepare. So how are you staying current on the latest developments, and where do you learn?
A couple of things. So one is just really playing with these models and staying very close to the frontier. Playing with these models, like really experimenting and just seeing it for yourself, because sometimes you have to see the power of these models to believe and to see kind of their capabilities, because it's different between when someone tells you something and then you actually seeing it for yourself and getting your mind blown. My mind is blown like once every couple of weeks. And and so it comes, sometimes you just have to really play with it and experience it yourself. And two is probably consider joining Frontier Labs, especially for all the founders. Well, seriously, especially for all the founders and builders out there, I think there's so much happening at these labs that it's really incredible opportunity, and also it's an opportunity to help shape the future, all right, for a good cause and a good mission. So I think definitely you get to see a lot of the things firsthand, and there's so many talented people with so many different ideas. There's no shortage of different things to do or to innovate, but definitely there's a lot that you kind of experience that kind of help shape your thought process about the development of AI.
And is there anything specifically that you've coded up or something that helps you with personal productivity or anything like that?
You know, I used to ask this question a lot, which is kind of interesting, the answers, which there doesn't seem to be this like magical AI tool that somehow is so amazing yet no one's heard about, right? It's usually the usual suspects that you hear about, like Cloud Code or Cursor and things like that. So that's one thing I've learned. There's no magic tool that's somehow really good. And certainly if it was really good, you probably know about it. But I think part of it is just like continuously experimenting with these tools. And maybe one thing is also think about like, what can you build even as a non-engineer, right? Like as the model capabilities get better and better, and you have from tab autocomplete to junior engineers to maybe eventually senior engineers, what could you create that maybe doesn't exist, that's tailored for you, that fits your workflow, and just continuously trying that, because at some point it's going to work.
Right. It reminds me of homebrew computer clubs years and years ago. It's like people would get together in small groups and say, what can we do with this thing, which is a computer, right? And, because it feels like it's still a little brittle, and you generally often need somebody who's an expert in, like who's coded before to help you, even if it's vibe coding. Like Andre Karpathy and I don't vibe code exactly the same way. Okay, so let's talk about 2026 and beyond. Do you have any predictions that are?
2026 is going to be an incredible year. I think we're going to see a ton of changes. And if we think 2025 was pretty crazy, where these companies are going from 0 to 100, 200 plus million revenue, 2026 might be even crazier. I certainly think it's going to be every year is the biggest year, but maybe even more so. And if you look at AI 2027 and you look at the sort of meter trend lines of where we're progressing, how many hours of autonomous tasks AIs can do, right? Certainly it's trending exponential. And one of the things I always tell people is, and again, no one knows this, but it's like, if you can stay on the exponential, right, then you'll get to AGI. But if you fall off the exponential, it's going to take you a long time to catch up, because even if you fall off, even if you fall off for a little bit, you probably lost like 10 years, right? Even if you catch up to exponential. So if you can stay on it, then you'll get to some form of economic AGI. But if you start to taper off, maybe not.
Well, let me ask you quickly. You're an angel investor.
Right.
Is there anything that you're intent on backing these days, or what's interesting to you?
I'm really mostly focused on just backing great people, people who are like with network, friends of friends, or who are really driven, passionate, starting a company and really focused on solving the problem and really have a long-term perspective, because it takes a long time to build a great company. Just great people who can learn quickly, who are driven, motivated, ambitious, and just really focused on building a great company for the long run.
Great. Okay. Well, let's do a lightning round. So this would be hot or cold. Is it fleeting, or is it foundational, or underhyped, overhyped, whatever you think?
Sure.
Okay. Robots in your house.
I think it's a little overhyped, because I think robotics is still a lot further away than sort of software or sort of white collar type of work. A couple of things. One is, I think just the amount of training data is not the same as the internet, all of the internet. And two is, I'm not sure robots are the right form factor, or humanoids rather. Sorry, because like a dishwasher is actually very, very good. Right, it works super well, and you put dishes in, and for whatever reason, is having a humanoid wash your dishes manually the best form factor, right? I'm not sure. And if you have a humanoid who can put the dishes in the dishwasher, is that really like that?
like game changer.
That game changer?
What's your willingness to pay for a load unload the dishwasher?
Right. So again, I think maybe at some point it could be helpful, but I think if we want like real economic productivity in the short term, I'm not 100% sure if humanoids are the best form factor, even if it could work.
Okay, you're not long on robots in the home. Okay.
I think in the long term, yes. Short term, I think it'd be tough. Yeah.
Okay. How about smart glasses?
I think maybe for some industrial use cases, it could be helpful. For the consumer, I'm not sure. I think Google Glasses tried, Meta, Quest, and Ray-Bans, and things like that. So, like, how many people do you know wear smart glasses? I'm not sure. You can also, by the way, apparently you can buy one, like a AI smart glass translation thing on Temu for like $10. So, yeah. I don't know. It's a little. I think a consumer use case is tough.
Okay, and you heard it here because you're a consumer guy. Okay, how about voice? So you might have heard at Whisper, the developers have a microphone on their desk, and they're talking to code and coding up with voice. What do you think about that?
I think voice is huge. Voice has been around for a long time, well before humans could read and write, and will continue to be a super important form factor. You can just express way more. It's lower friction. So yeah, I think it will continue to grow and scale, and it's I think pretty fundamental to human communication.
So are you using voice at all with your systems and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, things like WhisperFlow and the 50 other clones of that. Yeah.
Agents working reliably.
If you believe AI 2027, I think that is predicted to come in April 2026. So I guess we'll find out. I have no. I don't think anybody knows, but that is the AI 2027 report.
Well, is there anything I didn't ask you today that I should have?
No, I think we covered a lot of ground. Talked about startups. We talked about AI. We talked about bootstrapping, lean AI startups, the leaderboard. We talked about Anthropic, future of AI. No, it was great.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Well, Henry, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge, and we so appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for listening to the Village Global podcast. You can check us out online at villageglobal.vc. We'd love to hear from you, your feedback, your ideas, your inspirations. You can email us